Now, back to Access Tech Live, the latest in tech and accessibility with Stephen Scott and Marc Aflalo.
Welcome back. This is Access Tech Live. I'm Stephen Scott. Marc Aflalo is with me. We're having a lot of fun this week, and we hope you can get involved as well. Marc, we're going to shift gears a little bit now and talk about an event that is coming up at the end of this month that everyone can get involved in.
That is right. Back in 2021, Deque Systems, which is a web and software services company who focuses on digital inclusion, created a very cool one-of-a-kind online-only conference all about digital accessibility. Now, AxeCon, which is what it's called, returns for its fourth consecutive year. Joining us now is the co-founder and marketing lead at Deque Systems, Ryan Bateman. Ryan, number one, congrats on all your success to date. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We're looking forward to previewing exactly what we're having up in just, 2 weeks now? 3 weeks? My God.
Oh, yeah, it's coming up real quick. I couldn't be more excited. February 20th through 22nd, 3-day conference, AxeCon, like I said, coming up. Great to meet you both, gents. Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's a 3-day conference divided into 4 tracks, really meant to appeal to anyone and everyone that's trying to help further the mission of digital accessibility.
It's so cool, you know, and for people who aren't familiar with it, how did it come to be? Like, how was it first created? And obviously we know what it's all about, but and what kind of programming do people expect? But give us the backstory first.
Sure. So I've been at Deque for about 6 years, and in my time in the digital accessibility space here, I was just observing that there is this fantastic and passionate community, right, that is trying to help make the web more digitally equitable. And there were pockets of physical meetups all around the world, across the US. There are some fantastic assistive technology shows that are out there where a lot of great magic happens. But there really wasn't a big centralized conference that is especially free and virtual, that invites folks from around the world to focus explicitly on digital accessibility and digital accessibility testing, right? So designing digital accessible experiences, developing them, reinforcing them, the people and process and culture that it takes, right, for all of us to make sure that we're building accessible experiences together.
And that's across the board, right? I mean, we're talking here about all disabilities, all people, and making the web, making apps, making games, making everything accessible, right?
You got it. If it's digital, it should be accessible, right? And that's for everybody. Yeah, the way that we have the conference set up today in these different tracks is really meant to help people wherever they are in their digital accessibility journey, whether they're just getting started out and trying to make their company's website or mobile apps or video games or digital documentation. They're just trying to make it the bare minimum amount of accessible, or they're really trying to innovate, right, and push the envelope with the latest trends with regard to making sure that that app is as usable and friendly to everyone as humanly possible, right? So yeah, that's sort of what the conference is about and who it's for. Anyone can come in. It's, really the one thing that every AxeCon attendee has in common is that they are an advocate and a champion for change, and they're trying to do more. And that's what we try to offer in the talks for folks that attend.
Ryan, what kind of programming, like what kind of specific topics do you have coming up this year? And what are some of the companies that get involved every year?
Yeah. So we've got 3 stellar keynotes that are lined up. Ramon Chaudhry, Jonah Berger, and Squirmy and Grubs. I'm not sure if you are familiar with them from YouTube. Check them out if you haven't. But the theme that we try to reinforce with the keynotes, right, is generally pretty high level, right? We want to make sure that people feel empowered, impassioned, and give them some lessons for affecting change, right? Ramon Chaudhry is a responsible AI fellow Harvard University, co-founder and CEO of a nonprofit, Human Intelligence. She's the former director of AI ethics at Twitter. And we all know about, well, everyone knows you can't avoid AI anymore, and it as a potential topic. She's going to be bringing some really great color surrounding the use of ethical AI, right? Which is important everywhere, but certainly important in digital accessibility. There's a lot of changes that have been happening in the last few years with different approaches people are trying to take to make their sites and apps as accessible as they can. And some may rely on what some would argue are less ethical uses of AI, and others more so. So how does the average Joe identify, right? What is ethical? What is unethical? What will help me make my digital content more accessible without sacrificing and hurting others, right? When you're painting a broad brush with AI and automation, it's really easy to do that. So Ramon is going to be fantastic. Jonah comes to us. He's a international best-selling author and professor of the Wharton School of Marketing. And we brought Jonah in a lot for the same reason that we brought in, if you're familiar with Seth Godin last year, for these fantastic marketing visionaries. What does marketing have to do with digital accessibility? Well, it's really about how do I use my powers of persuasion within my organization to affect change, right?
Yeah.
Digital accessibility is a lot. It can be a lot to take on, and you have to get a lot of recruitment and culture change. And so really that's kind of the idea, right? We're trying to go for these visionaries that are going to help these champions and advocates make change happen and do more.
You know, I got to ask you a question before I even move on. What's written on your T-shirt? I notice it says "Friends don't." I can't see all of it. Friends don't let friendship. Friends
don't let friends ship inaccessible code.
That's awesome. I love it. Okay, I got to ask you. So, as one of the co-founders, are you surprised by the growth? Because starting something online is different than an event where you're trying to get people out in person, right? And I think the timing worked out well. You know, 2020, 2021, people didn't really want to leave their house.
Yeah, we certainly benefited. I think the timing was right? Sort of the heat of the pandemic, offering a virtual conference, right? Why not go? I can't do anything else. But it still shocked us. I mean, we have some sense, right? Deque obviously is in the digital accessibility space. So we have some sense of the growth, the growing growth and interest that we're seeing here. But AxeCon still surprised us. Honestly, that first year, I think we were forecasting around 6,000 folks for attendance, and 17,000 showed up.
Oh, is that it?
Yeah. And since then, I think the record now is 27,000. So, and this year for AxeCon 2024, we're trending to beat that record. We'll see where we end up, but yeah, pretty fantastic.
I want to ask you, so it's interesting here because I'm one of the average Joes, right? In this respect of, someone who uses a lot of tech every day, uses accessible software, I use a screen reader, all of that stuff. And I think, one of my fears, and I think a lot of people who are disabled fear that with this rush to AI, there's a sense of either the AI can solve all of our problems with accessibility, or we just gloss over the problems of the past with accessibility, and we just move on and we say, okay, well, let's focus on this. There are still many gaps at the moment. For example, I can go to some websites and just have difficulty checking out. I can add something to a basket, I get to a checkout, I just can't get any further. And I have to get sighted help for that, which is useless. I want to do it myself. So I guess what I'm asking you is that addressed at your conference? Is this something else that you focus on to say, let's make sure we fix the problems of the past before we try and reinvent the future?
You're absolutely spot on. That's a core message that I think if you throw a dart at the agenda and go to any one talk, that should be clear to you, right? Now there is a fine balance, right? If you, for example, only approach digital accessibility from what we'll call a manual testing perspective, right? Where you use a subject matter expert to test every piece of content, every piece of code manually that is in production, right? That is a big, expensive, and slow way to practice digital accessibility. And you'll get a lot of pushback from other stakeholders and leadership within a business when you do it that way. So you do have to think about, what can I intelligently and carefully automate and balance with that need for manual testing. And so it's absolutely this balancing act that I think every single speaker at AxeCon understands. Not every single attendee understands that, right? So yeah, it's absolutely something that we want people walking away with, right? You can't fear automation and AI, because if you do and you fight it and you avoid it, there are others who will embrace it and will start to change the culture and start to build this idea that it's acceptable, and it's not, right? It's entirely about building a better experience at its core, and a one-off project and a Band-Aid, right, to make some lawsuit go away that will fail, right?
You're kind of alluding there to a question I want to ask you about, which is accessible overlays. This is something that comes up time and time again. We're hearing more and more about these. The disability community seems to be very keen to push back on them. What's your take?
Yeah. I mean, I have an inherent bias take, right? Because I work at a company that encounters selling against overlays, right? And when I say overlays, I think my definition of that is the widget, right? That you'll see floating on a site that offers, in many cases, a different and separate experience, right? When you're encountering a website. So if you're encountering a website through an overlay or a widget, it's not the same native experience that everyone else is getting, which I think is fundamentally a problem and at odds with the whole idea of digital equality. And then there's also the issue of, especially if you might be able to help comment on this, but are you taking away choice of the individual user and how they want to consume that material, right? When I get to go to a website, I can use whatever browser I want, whatever technologies I want. I'm empowered to decide how to consume that information, because I'm not a screen reader user and I'm not reliant on that widget or that thing, right? So when you make that, when you make the code accessible, right? There's a reason I'm wearing this shirt, right? When you make that the code accessible, the core experience accessible, right? You are approaching it from a true digital equality standpoint and making it available in the way that it should be for everyone.
And Ryan, that's a topic I'm sure
that's the same experience.
And I'm sure that's a topic that's going to be coming up a lot, especially during this year's convention. Where can people register if they want to register? And obviously, it's a free conference, so nobody has to pay anything. What's the website address?
Sure, it's deque.com/axe-con. That's deque.com/axe-con.
Ryan Bateman, thank you so much for taking the time to fill us in. We're going to have you back on and continue the conversation, because there are so many things we could talk about.
Yeah, thanks so much.
When we come back, we're going to get to your answers to our question of the day, which is what makes a good audiobook. So do stick around. This is Access Tech Live.
There's more Access Tech Live to come. Get involved and have your say at Access Tech Live on social media. We'll be right back.